Hey guys, we've touched on this topic just a little bit in some previous videos, but we think that it deserves its own video because it can be a real major point for people who are in Japan. Sometimes short term, but definitely people who are long term. So as you would have noticed if you've watched the how-to videos, I think we've got 130 something how-to videos so far, and anybody who's watched all those how-to videos will know that sometimes living in Japan is difficult. It's actually difficult, can be difficult here for Japanese people, but also for foreigners because of often there's cultural differences between the way we've lived previously and how we have to live here, and the society differences and the language barriers or language difficulties, challenges. Lots of different reasons, all the things that we've covered already on the how-to playlist. For those reasons, Japan can be a difficult place for foreigners to live, and it can wear people down. So quite often what will happen is people will keep trying and just keep doing their best to do everything as well as they can, but slowly they can get worn down. And quite often what happens is people go home early. People will say, I'm moving to Japan, and they'll come to Japan, they'll live here for 6 months or a year, and then they'll go home because it just wears them out. They just can't keep it up, and then they go home. But what can sometimes happen is when you're even short term, but you can get tired and worn down from the different frustrations and difficulties and things. And sometimes when you're absolutely at your worst, when you're really struggling with your frustrations or with your patience or with temper, if you're a person who loses your temper, of course you can't do that in Japan. And at those moments when you're really struggling the most, it's not unusual for Japanese people to laugh at you. And depending on what sort of culture you've come from before, that can be really difficult. So in some cultures that some of us come from, laughing at somebody who's having a bad time is considered to be bad form, isn't it? And for those people, if you're having a really bad time and you're really frustrated and somebody's laughing at you, it makes it worse. Now the reason is that in Japanese culture, laughing in a difficult situation is showing that it's all okay. So it's actually considered, from a Japanese point of view, it's actually considered a kind thing to do. So we'll just do some examples to give you an idea. So we might have mentioned in another video, for an example, a foreigner coming from a country where they don't do a lot of skiing, finding himself at the top of an Olympic ski run with a bunch of Japanese people who are very good at skiing, and finding himself slipping over on the ice and hurting himself, bruising himself, falling over on the ice, and having 15, 16 Japanese people standing around laughing, and then trying to stand up again and falling over and getting hurt again, and having everybody laughing, and 3 or 4 or 5 times of that, and getting frustrated and getting bruised and not understanding why everybody's laughing. So that's one example. Another one might be, for example, that was a true story by the way. Another one might be, for example, you're at a restaurant with a group of people and you bump something over on the table, or you drop something on the floor, people might laugh at you. Some of the more difficult examples of this might be if you lose your temper. And this is quite common too. If you lose your temper, there's a good chance the people that are around you will laugh at you. Which again, for some people coming from some cultures, that wouldn't be usually the best reaction for people to give, would it? Usually, if we're frustrated or we're having a bad time, people usually show compassion, don't they? And it's a visible compassion. So, oh, are you okay? The slipping over one's a good example. If you trip over or hit your head or somehow hurt yourself, there's a good chance Japanese people will laugh at you. And you know, in some cultures that we come from, people are more likely, if you hit your head on something, more likely to say, are you okay? Or if you drop something at the table, oh, it's okay, don't worry, you know, and show some compassion for your frustration, show some compassion for your embarrassment. So that's often a feeling that is common for foreigners in Japan, to feel embarrassed, to have done something embarrassing here, and then have everybody laugh at them. And because, again, our natural feeling, if we're embarrassed You know, for many of us who've come from other cultures, if we're embarrassed by something and then people laugh at us, it makes it more embarrassing, doesn't it? And it's the same as with the temper thing. If you're trying to get something across and you're getting frustrated and you're saying, look, this isn't good enough, we need to do this, you know, I want to do this, and this isn't good enough, and you're getting frustrated, and then they laugh at you, it's the same thing. It's like you're wanting them to take you seriously, you're wanting them to listen to you, and they start laughing at you. And I actually had that happen once in a police station. There was a person behind the counter who was a public servant, wasn't a police officer, it was just a public servant. We're trying to get some paperwork done. And it was unnecessarily difficult. The Japanese person I was with, there was a change of address, and the Japanese person I was with did the whole process in about a minute. And then it came my turn, and you know, 20 minutes later we're still there, and I was getting frustrated. And this is often what happens too, is that, you know, the systems here are frustrating, and the way things are done here are frustrating, and because you're a foreigner, quite often it's more mucking around, and it's more, you know, it's more difficult, and it's more frustrating, and your frustration builds. And this particular day I was getting really frustrated, and I was saying, look, this is ridiculous. Why is it that both of us need to do exactly the same thing? You know, this person's done it in 1 minute, 20 minutes later I'm still here, and it's all just too difficult. You know, and I was getting frustrated, and the public servants behind the counter laughed. They were laughing, and I was really getting frustrated, and they were laughing. And this happens quite a lot. So the difficulty is that with the cultural differences and with the way things are done here differently, is when you're calm and cool and collected, like you are when you're sitting comfortably at home watching these videos, it's like, yeah, I can do that. And we often get these comments on the how-to videos too. People leave comments when we make a video saying that something is difficult here, and people sitting at home in, you know, Australia or America or England watching it from the comfort of their home on a computer will tell you, they'll leave a comment and say, I don't think that'd be difficult, I could do that. You know, yes, certainly you could. But those times where we're feeling relaxed, and it's the same as when you are actually here, when you're feeling relaxed and well rested, and you've had lots of sleep, and you've just finished eating, and you're feeling really relaxed and comfortable, and something frustrating happens, you know, it's much easier to cope with it. But when you're living here, day after day after day, there's days where you're not feeling very good, or, you know, you haven't eaten yet, and you're hungry, and you're tired, and you're frustrated, and then you go into some place to try and do something that should take a minute, and it takes half an hour, and then, you know, it builds up. It builds up. And again, this is why a lot of foreigners that say they're moving to Japan, we hear that all the time, I'm moving to Japan. And quite often the people that move to Japan last 6 months or 12 months, and then they go home. Because of all these things, it builds up and builds up. So it is a difficult place to be. And then when you're struggling, the other thing is too that most Japanese people don't understand how difficult it is for foreigners. So, I mean, Japan is a difficult place for Japanese people to live too. You know, a lot of the stuff that's difficult for us is difficult for them as well, but they've been here forever and they're used to it, and for them it's sort of normal, and they go, oh, well, shocking, eh, that's the way it is. But for foreigners, we've got another added level of stress on top of it, that it's very hard for Japanese people, even those that we spend time with every day, to understand, because for them the things that drive us crazy, make us frustrated, you know, that cause us stress, are things that they're just used to because they've been here forever, and they don't understand why we get frustrated. So the tricky thing is that this laughing thing is actually compassionate. So when I mentioned compassion before about how in other cultures, if someone's frustrated or tired or angry or something, or embarrassed, we tend to show them compassion. Oh, it's okay, don't worry, you know, and we try and show them obvious compassion. The Japanese way of showing, it's not really compassion. Compassion is a bit lacking here, to be honest. It's not really a part of the makeup here, it really isn't. But the way of showing, or the way of trying to restore, really what it's about, it's not about compassion at all. There really isn't any compassion. That should be another video topic. There's no compassion here at all. But what there is there's a desire to restore there's a desire to restore harmony, and that's the main focus of the group all the time. So whether you're just with one other person or you're with 10 other people or 100 other people, the main mission, everybody's goal, is to maintain harmony. So if you do drop a big plate, if you're having dinner, everybody's sitting around, and you do drop a plate of food on the tatami floor, they will all laugh, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to show you and they're trying to show each other that it's all okay. It's okay, right? So nobody feels bad. They don't want anybody feeling bad. They don't want any of the other people feeling bad. They don't want you feeling bad. So everybody laughs to show that it's all okay. Oh, it's okay. Oh, not to worry, you know? And it's the same if you slip over and hurt yourself. If they show concern, and this is the difference, this is a big difference here in the styles, is that if you slip over, we'll turn it around. If a Japanese person slips over and you say, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? They feel bad because their falling over has created a bad vibe, because it's gone from being fun and happy and genki to concern for their well-being. And that makes them feel bad because they don't want to cause any ripples in the happiness, right? So they would feel better if they slip over on the ice and bruise themselves. They would feel better if you laugh than if you show concern, because if you show concern, it's like they've upset the harmony, upset the happiness, which is a hard thing for foreigners to get your head around. And the thing is, it's easy to get your head around in the comfort of your car talking like this, or in the comfort of sitting at your computer, or again, if you're feeling all happy and relaxed. It's like, oh yeah, I can sort of see that. But when you're in the middle of those emotions, that frustration or that irritation or that anger or that whatever that strong feeling is that you're feeling at the time that you're struggling with, and suddenly people start laughing, even though on an intellectual level you know, and if you could hit the pause button and pause that situation and think about it, you could say to yourself, oh, right, okay, there's that cultural thing again where they're just laughing because that's what they do. And even though while it's actually happening, you can think that these sort of emotions are really deeply ingrained in us, aren't they? So if you've come from a culture where if someone's really embarrassed and you point and laugh at them, that it makes their embarrassment worse, and you're used to living like that, and you come here, it doesn't matter how long you live here, those deep-seated emotions are really deep, and you can live here as long as you want. And even though you understand a lot of these things better from living here long term, the emotions are a very hard thing to change. So it's very hard when you just embarrassed yourself, or you're really feeling frustrated, and the person on the other side of the counter is laughing at you, you know, which would be totally unacceptable in a lot of other countries, wouldn't it? If you're dealing with a public servant in another country and you're getting frustrated and you're saying, look, this is just not good enough, I'm not happy with this. You know, why is it why is that? And they start laughing at you, would be unacceptable, wouldn't it? And that's often how it feels here. It feels like when someone starts laughing at you like that, it's like, you know, it's very hard to stay cool or to stay connected to those people. So the reason that we've made this video, it's just a big heads up, because it can leave you feeling really bad about some people. If you've got someone you quite like them, and you've been spending some time with them, and then you find yourself in one of these situations with them and they start laughing at you, it can really alienate you from them, because you're thinking, you know, what an asshole. You know, what an asshole. You know, I'm going through all these difficulties today, and I'm having a really, really bad day, and they're laughing at me. You know, it's very easy to feel alienated from people when they do that. And yeah, we just have to remember that this is the case. And these things are so deep-seated, they're so ingrained in us and in the Japanese people that it's something that just won't change, of course. So we just have to deal with it as best we can and try and remind ourselves why it's happening. As we've mentioned in other how-to videos, staying cool is really essential here. Showing any sort of frustration or any sort of anger or any sort of negative, strong emotion at all is just, any negative emotion at all, strong or weak, is just not acceptable here, and it just makes situations worse. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. Just give you an example. What triggered this video was yesterday. We were supposed to have a meeting with somebody, and we turned up at the office, and the other person in the office went away and had a phone call and was actually laughing on the phone, and then came back laughing and said, oh, sorry, she forgot about this meeting. And we'd actually traveled, you know, 40 minutes or something to go to this place to meet this person. And even though this other person in the office was apologising, you know, they were saying, "I'm very, very sorry, I'm very, very sorry," but they were laughing. And it was just really annoying, because it was like, damn, you know, you've wasted our time, this other person's wasted our time, and you're laughing at it, you know. And even though, again, here, well aware of why, okay, she's just trying to lighten the situation. She's really embarrassed, she's apologising, she's just trying to keep the situation light by laughing. And it's automatic, they can't help it, you know, because the same as that we can't help our emotions, Japanese, and reactions, or we can help it, but even though that, you know, we try to control it as much as we can, and the Japanese people are the same. They just, it's natural in that situation, you know. So she was sort of laughing, and again, it's like, oh, even though you know why she's doing it, and it's just normal. It's normal. That's the thing we have to remind ourselves. That person's reaction is normal here, and then the normal reaction for us is to say, oh, it's fine, no problem at all. No, we'll just go shopping. It's no problem, and it's no big deal at all. And no, we just live down the road, and we didn't come far, and you know, and wipe it off is not important and no big deal, and that's the appropriate thing to do. But later on, it still rings in your ears later on. It's like, God, that is such, for us, it feels like such an inappropriate reaction, you know, and that's often what you'll feel, is that these reactions you'll feel are totally inappropriate. But what we have to do is, in these situations, is we have to remind ourselves that it's normal. Because what it tends to happen is, because we're human beings, we tend to look at that other human being and consider that human being's reaction to what's happening is inappropriate. And that can make it worse, because then we tend to get frustrated with that person. That person, you know, I'm having this frustration, I've explained my frustration and what I want to achieve, and that person's laughing. And it's very easy to get into that thing of that person's responding inappropriately. But what we have to do is we have to remind ourselves it's not that person, it's this society has that reaction to this situation, and that person is perfectly normal. And we have to remind ourselves that our reaction has to be normal here too, because getting the frustrated or the angry thing happening, as we mentioned lots of times before, it just makes it worse here. It doesn't get things done. In some countries, if you get frustrated or angry and you say, look, this isn't good enough, I want this fixed, in some countries that will make a big difference. Here, most of the time, it just makes the situation worse. Most of the time it won't resolve anything, and you'll end up feeling really bad later, because we don't see strong negative reactions here from other people. So if you let yourself do that, you'll feel really bad about it later. So yeah, so heads up, even if you're only here short term, heads up for that reaction. If you find yourself in a difficult situation and people laughing at you, just remember this, that they're normal, they're being normal, and that just let it go. And it doesn't mean that they're not being kind, or that they're, you know, whatever else that we might assume based on our own cultural experiences. Just accept that, you know, their reaction is normal. So anyway, hope somebody's found that useful. More videos coming soon.